Hi everyone. We're going to be doing a training on the VTCAP, which is the new state assessment for Vermont. The information contained in this training video is what we know as of right now, March 22nd, 2023. The state is continually releasing more information and changing how the system is working. So we're doing the best we can, and we'll continue to get more information out to you as soon as we are able. And you will be going to your MTSS or your state test coordinators for the school. We'll have all that updated information for you. Andrew McPhillips for Albert Bridge, Kristen Hubner for Weathersfield, Jenny Duranso at Heartland, and Bridget Ferriel at Windsor. So we're going to start here with a very quick, just kind of break the ice little video that shows my experiences and how they have gone with learning this new state assessment for the state. So that is just a small glimpse into what it has been like to try to roll out this Vermont state assessment. But we are going to get through it together, and we are certainly going to have bumps in the road. But we're just going to do the best we can this year and try to get through and hope that things improve for next year. All right. Oops. Hold on. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is policy and test security, roles and responsibilities. So I'm the district administrator, Brittany Preston. I'm going to take care of the training pieces, manage test security, and I'm going to be kind of the liaison between the AOE and the schools to make sure that we are doing everything we need to do on our end in order to make this as successful as possible and follow the rules and the security measures that are put in place. As I mentioned before, these are your school coordinators. They are there to answer any questions that you have. However, again, we only have so much information at this point in time, so they're going to do their best, but we continually learn new things, and they will get that information out to you. They're in charge of making sure that all staff attend the trainings such as this, ensure test security at your buildings. They manage the test administration, including developing schedules for the school to ensure that all students are taking the correct tests. And they're going to also help me and the tech department make sure that the accommodations are entered into the system correctly. The teacher or proctor role, at this point in time, they are one and the same. Their job is to just complete the test and follow all policy and test administration procedures. You are also going to be in charge of reporting any security incidents to either the school coordinator or myself, and follow all of the rules that we're going to be going over today. Proctors should be a certified school personnel. However, if a support staff member or a substitute teacher is needed to administer the test, which we have all the time, they must be fully trained in test administration, they must also be monitored by a certified teacher. So we're going to be working on and sharing that responsibility across many different roles to make sure that all proctors are administering the test and following the procedures. So test security and related procedures, we're going to talk a little bit about the environment as well in this. So test security is really, really important in order to maintain the validity, reliability, and fairness of the testing results. Breaches of the test security include, but are not limited to, copying of test materials, failing to destroy test materials, coaching students, giving students answers, and or changing students' answers. So we need to be very, very careful. It's really hard when you're in a room with a student who's struggling to not provide some sort of support or to just read it to them or things like that. But we need to be very, very careful that we are following all of the procedures and encouraging students to do their best, letting them know that we are not able to help them. Obviously, if it's an accommodation in their IEP that has the teacher being allowed to read to them, then that would be logged in their accommodations on the actual test. Violations of these are extremely serious. They could lead to, licensing issues. They could also result in our tests being invalidated by the state, which is very serious. We do not want to have to take this test more than once. So please make sure that you are following all of the security measures. As we move forward, a testing environment is going to refer to all aspects of the testing situation where students are testing, including what a student can see, hear, or access. This also includes technology. So when we're setting up our testing space, we have to make sure that we maintain a quiet testing environment throughout the entire session. We need to note that students will certainly finish before or sooner than others, or others will take longer. So we need to be sure we have a plan for those other students so that they are not making noise and things like that, and that the room stays quiet. If students are going to be allowed to leave the testing room when they are finished, there should be procedures put in place in each building so that they can do so without disrupting other students. And if they are going to stay in the room, as I said, they should have activities and things that they may engage in when they're done that are not related to the test and are quiet. In your testing space, here's a list of some of the things that the state posted that you can have in your classroom. Students should have headphones for both math and ELA and science for any of the listening portions of those assessments. They should have scratch paper for all of the assessments so they can take notes or jot some things down. The scratch paper must be collected at the end of the session and destroyed at the end of the test. Before testing, make sure that instructional materials are removed or covered in your classrooms. The seating should be arranged so that there's enough space in between each student so they are not disrupting each other or looking at each other's tests. And they encourage a sign be placed on the door that just says "Do not disturb" so that we can be sure that the testing environment stays quiet and the students can focus. During the assessment, you should provide a quiet environment, actively monitor students, and prohibit access to unauthorized electronic devices. Provide students access only to allowable resources permitted for each specific test or portion of the test. Ensure only students who are testing can view test items. Ensure no form or type of answer key has been developed for test items. Administer the test only through the secure browser, and ensure no unauthorized logging into the test delivery system occurs. During and after the test, staff are not permitted to review student responses or notes on the scratch paper. Unless needed for an accommodation, no copies of the test content materials can be made available to anybody, including recordings. Test materials must not be discussed with or released to anyone. Staff may not review, discuss, or analyze test content materials at any time during or after the test. All test materials must remain secure at all times. After testing, test materials cannot be used for instructional purposes, and test materials must be destroyed. That means all the scratch paper and things of that nature. We do not currently have any printed materials for our students, so I'm going to skip this portion of the assessment. However, in the future, if you do have a student with printed materials, we will certainly train you in that. All right, a test security incident. If something were to occur that makes the test unfair for a particular student or gives them an unfair advantage, it might compromise the assessment results. Whether intentional or by accident, failure to comply with test security rules, either by staff or students, constitutes a test security incident. There are different levels of test security incidents. The one is just a low impact, such as a fire drill, something along those lines, maybe connectivity issues. Those do not need to be reported to the state. Unusual circumstances that impacts an individual or a group who are testing and may affect the student's performance on the test or the test security or validity must be reported to the state. So your job would be to first report it to your school coordinator, and then it would come to me. Examples include things like technology issues, students talking to each other during testing, or inappropriate assignment or use of accommodations. The most serious test security incident may pose a threat to the validity of the test. Things such as maybe you copy the assessment and you share it out with other people. These are things that may result in a decision to remove certain test items from the actual test for the entire state. So please be mindful of what you are doing and what's going on in the room to ensure that we do not have any incidents. All right. So the tests there are two assessments for most students. 5th, 8th, and 11th have a science assessment on top of the other two. All tests must be completed between April 12th and May 26th. In a minute, I'm going to show you a general schedule for our SU. You will be then working with your school coordinator and administrator to come up with the very specific details of the test schedule for your building. You must make sure that, so each assessment is in 2 testing windows, so there are 2 sessions for each. ELA has 2, math has 2, and science has 2. Please ensure that there is enough time for a student to complete 1 full session. It doesn't mean they have to. So for example, if if they anticipate it's going to take 65 minutes, there must be a 65-minute window in 1 sitting for a student to complete it. They may not complete it and they may have to come back to it at another time within 5 school days. However, they must have enough time in 1 sitting. We need to make sure, and in our testing window, that we have enough time for makeup assessments if needed. So ELA has 2 testing sessions, math has 2, and science has 2. The first testing session for ELA is around 65 minutes. The other one is quite a bit longer. Math, both are around the 65-minute range, and science are around the 70 to 75-minute range. This does not include time to start the computers up, load the security browsers, things along those lines. So please be mindful of that. Once a test is started, like I said, you have to finish within 5, this says 5 school days. Yes, you must complete within 5 school days. So this means that if you have a student who is sick, who doesn't come to school very often, we need to be thinking about those things ahead of time. The schedule that we currently have looks like this. So this is the tech schedule, meaning that from the 25th to the 22nd, ABS and Windsor will have tech support on hand to manage any testing issues. HES and Wethersfield will be on the other days. It does not mean that ABS cannot test the following week, of the 2nd through the 4th. They can. They just won't have tech support those days. So, and you likely will need to, especially if you're thinking about Students who maybe started a test and they need to finish within those 5 days, you're probably going to test on an off week. It may also be the case for science. You will probably have to do the science assessment on those off weeks. But hopefully if we get you through your first testing week, working through some of the tech issues, that we won't have those issues the following time. One other thing to note that came up in the live testing session is, can a proctor administer more than one test at a time? And I have been told by the state that now proctors can administer more than one test at a time. I am not clear about how that exactly works, but hopefully we will get more information soon, and I will get that out to you as soon as I can. All right, before the test, the school coordinator will verify information and test settings in Atom, verify that students are provided the opportunity to use the practice test prior to testing. This is also the role of the proctor, so proctors need to make sure that all students have an opportunity to do the practice tests. They are linked in this slideshow, and they should also get familiar with the TestNav toolkit. That is a platform that Cognia has that will help students understand the different features within the test browser. So where to access accommodations, how to click the next button, how to select and answer, all of those kinds of things. The practice tests are just solely to get used to what the questions will look like. It is not in the same platform as what we will be testing in later, so you have to do both. Ensure that all proctors have the login information for the proctor interface on the day of the assessment. So when you are ready to proctor, you will be given a generic proctor passcode for, let's say, 3rd grade math. Anybody who's going to administer the 3rd grade math will get the exact same assessment or same passcode. You will log into the system using that password, and at that point you will create a session which will generate a code to give to students. So we're going to go over that in a little while, but I just wanted to make sure that that's clear. The website for this is right here. Okay. You will get a proctor proctor packet before testing on the day of. The proctor packet will have the initial login information. It will have, your student lists, and it will have the student cards that you will need for that day, which will have their student IDs on them. The students will need the student IDs in order to, as one of the login pieces for them to get into the system. Okay. Before the test, the proctor should read the test administration manual, which I've linked here, attend the training, which we are doing currently, and assign the training log. Complete the non-embedded accommodation disclosure agreement. If you have those, we'll make sure to get that to you. Provide students with an opportunity to practice and prepare. We'll make sure you get all of the information you need, like I just discussed. Make sure you have all the materials that you need. And then you'll make sure that you're adhering to all security protocols. During the test, you're going to log into the proctor. It says TA here. You're going to actually log into the proctor interface to start, monitor, and end a session. You can pause within that interface as well. You're going to provide students with their materials, follow the administration script, which I don't have currently, but we will get that to you as soon as we are able, and report test security incidents. Okay, after the testing, as we already talked about, you're going to destroy test materials in accordance with the test administration manual and the test coordinator's manual. Both of those are linked later in this slideshow. And we don't have any paper materials, so you don't have to worry about that piece. Okay, as you can see here, I've linked the TCM, the Test Coordinator's Manual, and the Test Administrator's Manual. Please become familiar with them. If you have questions, that's where you're going to go to first. Then you can go to your school coordinator. All right, so in terms of accommodations, there are a variety of different supports that are offered. There's the universal tools that are made available to all students. There's designated supports made available to students with an identified need but not an accommodation. There are accommodations that are documented within IEPs or 504, and within each of those categories are embedded and non-embedded accommodations. Embedded means that it is within the system, and non-embedded means that it's not, and that's something we have to give to the students. So currently, there is a spreadsheet that went around to all special educators and 504 coordinators to complete. That spreadsheet includes all of the accommodations that need to be turned on within the system, within the ADAM system. There were things on that list that were not actually there were things that were missing from that list because they are not currently in ADAM, but they are listed as an available accommodation. So as soon as those get into the system, we'll make sure to turn those on within ADAM. We'll consult with our school coordinators to make sure that students get what they need. If you would like some information about accessibility and accommodations, there's a guide linked right here. One very, very, very important thing to note is any student that has text-to-speech as either a designated support or as an accommodation, as soon as that's turned on with the system for this year only, the test then becomes non-computer adaptive. Okay, so that's extremely important to note. The test will no longer be computer adaptive. So just be mindful of this. At this time, the only students who are going to have access to text-to-speech will be students who have it listed as an accommodation in their IEP or 504. We are not going to turn that on for students just as a designated support at this time. Next year, hopefully, that feature will be fixed and the test will be computer adaptive for all students, regardless of whether text-to-speech is on. That also includes speech to text. So if you have a student who is getting speech to text, it will no longer be computer adaptive. So please be mindful of those things as you're considering the different accommodations that will be used for students. The other important thing to note is if text-to-speech is turned on for a child, the science assessment becomes 3 sessions, 3 full sessions, not 2. So that is another thing to note. I don't have any information about how long the 3rd session is, but that is just something that you're going to want to be aware of. Okay. Students are not required to use an accommodation just because they have access to it, so they are allowed to refuse them, but you cannot deny them access to that accommodation if it is in their IEP. This is the link to the practice test right here, and this is the link to the TestNav toolkit. When you click on them, you can see the practice tests are right here. Open them up, and here's what they all look like. Okay. And then the TestNav toolkit looks a little bit different, so when you click on it, it looks quite a bit different actually. It is going to take you through a video, and these are all the features that I was talking about. These are all the things that the student will be taught through this interactive video on how to utilize. So it looks very, very different from the practice tests. And I think it is extremely important that you share this information with your students and have them practice it multiple times. Okay. All right, here's the test administration part. This is really the part that, as of right now, this is what we think it will look like for you all, but we cannot be sure, unfortunately, and I will get that information out to you as soon as I am able. But step 1 is the school coordinator will give the Proctor card and login cards for students to you on testing day. So if you are a 3rd grade teacher or 3rd grade, you are administering third grade test at all, you will get the exact same Proctor group creation login. So you will have the exact same test code and Proctor password as everybody else who's administering the 3rd grade assessment. Okay, this is what the student login will look like. So it will have the identifier on here, which is just the student's ID. So just keep that in mind. All right, once you get your Proctor login, you are going to go to this website right here, vt.adamexam.com. You are going to click Proctor Login, and at that point you will be prompted to enter your test code and Proctor password. Looks like this, test code, Proctor password, okay? At that point, it's going to open up a Proctor dashboard for you. On the Proctor dashboard, it will prompt you to enter the Proctor group name, the Proctor's first name, Proctor last name, and email. The group name should look like this. It's the advisor or homeroom teacher's last name, whoever, you know, it might look a little different at every school, but for the most part, it's either the homeroom teacher, the advisor, or the first period class. Their last name, the grade number, and the subject of the test being given. So I have a couple examples. Taft 4 ELA, Ziegler 6 Math, Pooler 8 Science. The reason it's important that it looks like this is because we need to be able to match this class with the student easily. So, oh, it's Pooler 8 Science. I know all of the students from that homeroom, so I know which students took that individual test, okay? So be sure that you name them appropriately. You will click confirm, the dashboard will open, and it will give you a new test code, as well as a Proctor login and credentials for that test group. Write that information down, okay? Don't lose that information. The test code will be given to the student. On the student's card, they should note that test code because they will have to use that test code to get into the assessment if they need to finish it at another time. Okay? Any proctor, so if it was Pooler and he was administering that assessment, okay, but he's not there tomorrow, that password for him needs to go to the new proctor. Okay, so once you've created and set up that class, the student and the proctor, whoever administers it, have to use that exact same information every time they log in. You'll provide, like I just said, you'll provide the new test code to the students who should write it on their student test card. They could write that, the code and let's say math or whatever, so they know which test it is. The student's cards should be collected at the end of the assessment and stored in a secure location. The student will need that exact test code if they need to complete their test on another day. Now, from the student standpoint, the student's going to go to the secure test nav browser. That means they're going to, on their Chromebook, they'll make sure they're logged out of the Chromebook. In the bottom left-hand corner, the test nav secure browser will be there. They're going to open up, enter their student ID from their test card, and then they'll be prompted to enter the test code that the proctor gave them, at which time the proctor's session that they had started will start populating with students. So as it gets populated at that point, the proctor can monitor the student progress, they can pause the assessment, things like that, okay? If a student needs to finish the test session on another day, the proctor administering will need that exact same session name and the proctor login that was used. My plan is that at the end of each day, myself or the school coordinator will go in, we will print out a spreadsheet of all of the sessions that were created, all of the passwords that were created, so that we can have it on hand for the following day's assessment. All right, if you have any questions, the state asked us to provide this information for you. It's just a couple of links that might give you some good information. If you have general questions, these are the people you can go to at the state level. I would recommend first you come to us, myself or the test coordinators, and then we will pass that. If we don't know the answers, we'll pass that along. Cognia is the technical side of things, so if you have questions around the technical pieces, again, first you can come to myself, and I may send you to them, or I may just go to them myself to find the answers. And I very much appreciate you attending. Again, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. We will continue to get you information as we can, as we have it, so that you are prepared for testing day. And again, we're all in this together, and we'll do the best we can. Thanks.